keep the pool in. But they have to do a couple things on the agenda before they get the comments. Yeah, we should have maybe coordinated with this training instructor to do that.
I wonder why there's somebody driving back and forth.
I think he's teaching his wife how to drive with a camper.
Oh.
I was out there for a little bit, and he would come to the window and explain something, and then she'd go back and forth. Supposed to have a girls' weekend plans or something.
Yeah, I had initially emailed my husband in the room, so then I came instead, but there's only a couple of some security and for us. So, there's not many people here, which is a bummer, because everyone's looking out like information here, which makes no sense. All right, yeah.
That's the easy part, you think you'd be back into them.
Sounds good. You'll be able to see me, I'm wearing those. All right. All right, talk to you later. Bye.
Farm boys always learn how to back up the inertia better. They became very good drivers.
And then graduated to Hamway, get the steering from it.
Yes.
Because I don't have music that won't work when I go to play it like at the graduation. I went to play music and the computer froze. I was like, of course. I was not happy. Because everyone's like, looking around, looking for music.
Unfortunately, they only have 2 songs.
Yeah, well, and once I got it working, it was fine. It was just like, hi. Never fails. It's always something.
It seemed to work okay.
Yeah, once we had, it was really funny because they were walking Ray without the music playing. It was just kind of like, look at the computer like, hurry up, load faster. It's just the way it worked. So, oh, that went well. We had like almost
Well, they got real fortunate on the weather.
well, we had like 104 people watch it online, which was pretty awesome. You know, and that's all families, so you know, that's with more than 140 people. 140 different connections watching at the same time, which was kind of cool. So, hopefully we don't have 140 people watching nothing, but we'll see. But as this goes well, we might do this all the time. You know, have the camera and the stream. Let's see.
I noticed in the bills from June that you must have bought a lot of computer stuff.
Yeah, well, we usually,
There was a big one, the Firefly.
yeah, that's the company we buy our student devices from.
Okay.
And because of COVID, you know, the fact we weren't paying for buses, that money that normally we don't pay until July, you know, we don't buy until July, became available in last year's budget. So to help make this year's budget, this coming year's budget better,
Yeah.
we bought stuff earlier. So yeah, I mean, we did that, and we have a few other things that are still coming, but not too much. So we'll see how it works. You know, one step at a time.
If you wanna hear me go like, from the road to watch when I walk into Walmart or stuff.
There's been in a lot of places, yeah, that's probably what I would say.
Generally.
I just pick spots, so you guys can move them if you want. Kim texted me a little bit ago, she's like, can you put them out there? And I'm like, okay.
We forgot to turn the heat today though.
Like 58 on the stream right now.
What's that?
58 on the stream right now.
What's that?
58 people.
Oh,
watching right
okay,
now.
perfect.
Yeah.
Actually, wellness search, I'm gonna talk to you. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry we're late, everybody. We were in committee before, so we'll get started as soon as we get our technology set up here. I'll do that.
That we had to have this on all the time. You guys all want to accident?
Optional.
That's not what it said when I filled up the little form, well, coming to this. Oh, really? That's what it said.
We just had some further discussion.
Everybody sign in here that's here, that wants to, perfect, thank you, thank you.
That's what Janice said. Yeah. I'm not sure what the score is, but we're down. Yeah.
This is kind of an odd question. I know it's going back and forth.
Been here since, yeah, she's learning how to drive.
Oh, I'm sorry.
The tapes are still at the top, she's learning since 10 to 6.
What's going on here?
She's learning how to drive.
Very good.
It's been numerous, for sure. We were entertained while we were like this, so we were going like.
You have the camera? Do you have the screen, or this is the screen? You're gonna run this? Okay. Perfect. And then
Right, in our folder, fill it, it's our.
okay.
Once you go past the sign.
Yeah.
Okay, so.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I'll give you a good,
Okay, I will call the meeting to order. It's agenda, date, time, and location were properly announced. Again, I apologize for late. And just to make sure everyone signed in that wants to speak tonight, is signed in. Okay, great. So then we will start with the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of June 15, 2020. Is there a motion to approve? Brian, is there a second? Jennifer, any corrections, discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Payment of the bills, is there a motion to approve, for the month of June, the amount of $830,352.61?
So move.
Chuck, is there a second? Second. Brian, any questions or discussion?
Is that where the camera came out of?
Which one is that?
You purchased the camera for the
Yep, for the,
entrance?
yes, that would be, it should be in our July one here.
not sure if it's on this one or the next one. It might come up on the next one, but it's been paid for already,
Okay.
so, but it was just paid probably within the last week or so, so it may not show up on this one.
Any other questions? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Yes, Kim is virtually watching this and taking minutes from there, so we're good.
Perfect. And cash summary.
Just real quick, I know Patty has done a fantastic job of wrapping it up. As you know, our budget year is done, so starting July 1st, we're on a new budget cycle. And I think she's done a fantastic job of getting our reimbursements in and going from there. I can say, last year was expensive, and just so you guys know, as far as this, we got through the entire budget, and I think we were, when we always try to do our fund balance, we getting close to zero as possible, we got within $13,000 of zero. So we went a little bit into our fund balance, but from what we were projected early to what we ended up, we went pretty good. So it's, we're ready to roll into next year and go from there.
Any questions? Great. Next, we have the comments from the public. So I have 4 people on here, so we will start, Matt, is it Learn?
Yep.
Okay. And you have on here support for the teachers and communication.
So
They can't hear you, so can you speak up when you're talking so that they can hear you on the stream?
So right now, I was just gonna say we have 58 people.
60
that are
now.
in
Okay.
virtually on the camera there.
Mhm.
So if we can make sure nice and loud, so everybody can hear us at home, you can actually, if you wanna come a little bit closer here, Matt, come on in. You can even, the microphone is right on the camera right there, so.
I just wanted to show support for the teachers. I obviously don't know the result of the survey. We don't know that. And I guess I don't know exactly how every single teacher feels. But I'm here that teachers are all in favor. I'm here as a parent, and I've been talking to a lot of other parents in the community. I'm sure some of them are possibly on with us right now, and they agree. You know, we have to get our kids back in safely. And the one thing my wife, is being an ER nurse, she is worried about the overuse of hand sanitizer, you know, for like one of our cleaning options. She wanted me to bring up, you know, like scrubbing and, you know, not pumping our kids with hand sanitizer before they go eat, things like that nature when we get back into it. And then the other thing, just the communication. I know in the past I've brought up about how the school board presents their times and their agendas and stuff, and it goes into the sounder. And obviously there's 60 other parents on there, so they heard about the meeting as well. But I wanna know, is there other forms? Are you guys, like, when you have your meeting every month, I would like it that if, as a parent, we got a email, cause I'm not in the district, obviously my kids are school choice. So, you know, not saying all the parents are gonna come, cause you send more an email, but I would like to, you know, maybe have an email saying we're having the meeting and the agenda on it, and what you guys are discussing. I mean, I don't know if that's, I know me and Mr. Trimberger have had a couple exchanges about that. I guess that would be with a communication thing on there. And, I'm all for, you know, 5 days a week, and our kids, I trust our teachers, I trust the way the school handles everything, so I'm in full confidence that you guys will keep our kids safe, and, we can go back to school.
Thank you. We will be addressing, some of that in the agenda later as far as like the cleaning or what the plan is.
And then, also will you have the results of the surveys for us to view? Are we gonna be getting that, but I mean, they will be sent out to the parents as, you know?
Yeah, there's a communication plan after the board meeting here that I'll actually do a virtual instruction of all the different pieces and what it means, how it's actually informed our safety plan. So our goal today was to get the board's arm around it, make sure that we're all on the same page, and then you'll be seeing multiple Facebook, email, all those other things on many of these things. So,
Perfect.
but no, good questions, thanks, man.
Thank you.
Right. Travis Thomas, and your comments are support, communication, and air
Purification.
purification.
You have a vested interest in that.
Right.
I should put my glasses on, sorry.
So, hi, my name's Travis Thomas. I own All American HVAC. I have one kid that graduated now, and Brody, who's going to be a third grader here. And so, indoor air quality is something that I specialize in daily. We've been working with Sartori, Sargento, a lot of other companies as far as indoor air quality. How do we get workers back to work? How do we get kids back in school? And so on that, I kind of second what Matt's saying. You know, I coached baseball all summer long. I've talked to all my kids' parents and everybody else throughout the district, and it all sounds like whether you open or not, they're dropping the kids off on the sidewalk. So, I
Please open the
mean,
door.
somebody better be here. So, with that said, you know, we have to support our teachers. There's been conversation of doing 2 curriculums, right? First curriculum being an in-school curriculum, and second being an online curriculum. Problem with that is now teachers have to try to manifest 2 curriculums to teach. You know, I'm just in charge of 6 guys, 7 guys that work for me, and I struggle, right? I can't even imagine trying to be a teacher and orchestrate, you know, 20 third graders. You know, hats off to them. So, you know, so I just want to support them and getting the kids back to school. You know, secondly is the community, right? I mean, I see coaching baseball summer long. Kids, especially the kids I coach, which are first, second, third graders, they're losing how to even talk to one another because they came out of their basement. You know, and that's the most important, especially in the elementary level, right? They have the smallest level of infection rate and are the most vulnerable, or it's the most important for them to be around other kids or peers of their age. I get it changes as we get older, but I think we also have to look at it that way, right? We have to look at it on an age specific instead of, you know, a whole school or a whole district. So now I'll go back into air purification. So I did not want to jump on a bandwagon when COVID came around, but the bandwagon came knocking at my door. And so I had to do hundreds of hours on indoor air quality research and what it means to not only homeowners, but businesses alike. So there's a patent pending technology called bipolar ionization. What it virtually does is it takes oxygen particles and turns them into negatively and positively charged ions. Therefore, taking COVID-19, for example, or coronavirus, which is about a 0.12 micron virus, and enlarging it, right? There's not a whole lot of material out there that can catch a 1.2 micron virus. So virtually what we can do is polarize it, blow it up so that it's big enough to either be weighted to the ground or caught by a filtration system. Well, schools use a lot of steam. They use boiler systems. Well, we have typically a lot of drop ceilings. So what we've been doing is, for example, and I know a lot of people can't see this, but if we took this register here and this register here, and we just put a fan in between them, and we put bipolar ionization in that fan stream, virtually we are going to kill, and it's been proven, there's studies out. There was a study released just recently in regards to SARS or COVID-19. In 10 minutes of drawing air out of that register and putting it back in over here, we kill 99.997% of COVID-19. Now, that's not a whole lot. That doesn't seem like a lot, right? That's just the air. It also has been proven that it kills 80% of everything we touch. Both of those in under 10 minutes. So obviously we can't take live COVID-19. So what did we do? We took people that have COVID-19. And they diagnosed the problem, right? So we spend money foolishly every day, right? But we want to get our kids back in school. There's grants, there's donations, there's budgets, right? So there's ways that we can make the area safe without, back to Matt's thing, hand sanitizing them to death. You know, it's a 100% safe process. It's been around for 100 years. It creates no ozone. Something to think about, right? We are selling them daily to customers. They go in their homes, right? It takes 5 minutes to install in a residential furnace, and literally that's how much safer your home is. Yeah, it takes a little bit longer in a big building like this, but when you have Great Lakes cheese, Sargento, Sartori, looking at it, the other big one is they just installed this in the last 6 months in LaGuardia, O'Hare, LAX, San Fran International, JFK, are all using the technology, and they are reporting the least amount of COVID-19 cases out of those airports, out of anywhere in the United States. So the technology has proven that it works. So let's get our kids back to school. Yes?
How is it different than blue light technology?
So UV? Okay, so UV, literally, we have to pass through the airstream, right? When we pass through the airstream, it has to kill a live living microorganism. UV works a lot like ionization, but the problem is the microns from COVID or coronavirus are so small that whatever hits that UV is all it can kill. And so the problem with that is we have to continuously circulate it 1 million times to get it all dead. Where when we actually are ionizing the air that's out, we are blowing everything up. And so it becomes about 85% more effective than UV. UV is effective in bacteria and viruses. However, it's only effective in what it can touch.
And it was effective in water for crypto.
Correct.
But it didn't know how it related to air.
Yep.
So Travis,
Yes, sir.
I like your presentation. Is this a sales pitch? Have you figured out what it costs to do that here in this?
I haven't. I know that parents they talk to want to get their kids back to school, and I have a solution. I don't know what it would cost. I have zero clue what it would cost. I mean, I know what I charge every day to put it in a customer's house. It's $350, right? And it's installed in your house and done. We have a lot more obstacles, right? Rooftops are easy, right? A 12-ton rooftop, so one unit will do up to 6 tons. So if we have a 12-ton rooftop unit, we need 2 units, that's $700, $700, right? But when we get into the old parts of the school, where we're using convectors, and we don't have the forced air option, the sections that don't have the air conditioning or don't have forced air, well then we have to mandate or make a system, right? I.e. an inline fan, 2 pieces of flex duct, 2 registers, and an ionizer. $600-700 a room? I don't know. What's it worth to get our kids back to school?
As a board, could we ask him to create a proposal?
I think what we would do is have you talk with Mr. Trimberger.
Yep.
And, have Buildings and Grounds get in on that. And, Buildings and Grounds can take a look at that and see.
Mike, we have a meeting this Wednesday. Could we ask
Yeah.
Travis to come
Yeah,
and talk to us at that time?
sure.
And then give opinions on what we present tonight in that same realm as far as like what we're planning to do in the classrooms.
This is just a facilities meeting though, on Wednesday, give a
Right,
facilities.
but if there's something that we're talking about tonight that you're like, that I would worry about it for this reason, please bring those things up. Because, you know, room quality is not my specialty, so I would hope if he has an opinion, he would share with us.
Right.
Even if it's not on the
So-
agenda for us tonight.
So we're meeting on Wednesday, Travis, at noon. So if you're able to attend, let's talk, will you email me?
Yeah, we can talk offline,
Okay,
absolutely.
Perfect.
I don't wanna take up any more time, I just, you know, that wasn't a sales pitch, it's just, I believe I am an indoor air quality expert, and that's a lot, I mean, we're dealing with an airborne pathogen, right? So, I've had a lot of experience since March dealing with this, so.
Okay. Well, thank you for coming and letting us know.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, next we
Birnbaum.
Birnbaum,
Birnbaum, yeah.
okay.
First of all, I support the kids going back to school, I hope they can. But I think Evers might have a different plan eventually, you know, especially with what came out today with the teachers union. I'm trying to push for closure or a later start. My concern is the online schooling, I don't think was really as good as it could be. I'm just going through it last year, I know it was new, but we had a lot of struggles with it, myself and my daughter. It just kind of sounded like they were handed all the work, and if they had questions, they should ask. You know, it was, math class was 15 minutes, and in school it's, what, 45 or 50? If you have the technology for it to be on screen, just like it is in school, I don't know why we weren't using it. Maybe I just don't know the details, but I think it could be improved on, because I have a feeling that's the way we're headed. So,
What was your grade?
she
Grade
was
level
at
this
6. And we got through it. I mean, we were at it till 8 o'clock at night a lot of nights, because I was sort of reading the teacher's part of it, so I could teach her, and then she would do the homework with my help, so it was a struggle. And I hear it from a lot of others too. Just talking with her friends' parents, that there was a lot of issues with it. And I'm kind of curious how the grades ended up. You know, I don't know was there a serious drop at the end of the year? I never really heard. I know the state testing was canceled, but what really happened to the grades last year?
And, I mean, we did have an increase in failures. I think we're one of the few districts that actually held a line of learning, where a lot of districts didn't try to do any learning.
Sure.
I would say in the face of adversity, we had at least, you know, over 90% of our kids trying every day. So, yeah, I think you'll hear later on, virtual is okay, but we want kids in here 5 days a week. That's been our stance since it started. We want them in here, and you'll hear more about that as we go through this. So yeah, virtual is never, my personal opinion, we want them in school every day. But if we're forced because of outside reasons, then at least we'll have the best alternative we can.
You know, and one thing she said, she would, you know, join a class and she would be, you know, there with one other kid, which seemed odd. You know, a lot of times she said she was by herself. You know, it sounded like if they needed help, they could go to class. If they didn't, they could do it on their own, which to me isn't right either. I mean, I'm glad she was logging in. You know, we forced her to, I guess, but just wondering how these other kids were doing, you know.
It might have depended when she was logging in.
What's that?
It might have depended when she was logging in.
Okay.
Maybe at that time there was only one of them.
Sure, could be.
Because I know there was days for my daughter, she would log in and post discussion questions and respond to others, and sometimes she would have to wait for others to post and
Okay.
come back later to be able to
Sure.
respond, so.
And we had analytics that proved that that our students were, at sometimes in the middle school, we had days that 100% of our students were logging in, doing the work and all those other pieces. So I'm not sure about those experiences, but I can show you quantitative data showing that we had students in that actually has been submitted to others because we had such a good proportion of our students attending. So some of those were office hours by teachers, and some other pieces, our staff found many different creative ways to try to make sure kids were learning. So, yeah.
And I agree, my kids attended, but they didn't get as much out of it, and their grades failed, and we talked about this last meeting, you know, not failed, but they were worse than they would have been otherwise.
Okay, thank you. And last, we have Katie.
They can hear pretty well?
Yeah.
Well, I didn't expect to actually come in and find out that everybody was on board with 5 days a week, so that's good. But I wrote this, so I'm going to read it anyhow. So thanks for the opportunity to provide input on the decision about how to reopen Randleman School in the fall. I urge you to allow students at all levels to return to school on the normal 5-day-per-week schedule this fall. We're currently hearing a lot about spikes in positive COVID-19 diagnoses, and I know that makes people nervous about reopening schools. However, while the number of new cases reportedly rises, the number of deaths remains steady, indicating that medical professionals have learned how to more effectively manage the disease, the counts are skewed, or the virus has become less potent. The rate and severity of COVID-19 symptoms is significantly lower than the flu among people under 20, and the consequences of infection for those below about 50 in the absence of other health concerns have not proven to be worse than other diseases and risks that we already school resumes as normal, the risk from the coronavirus to most people involved is low. If school remains virtual or even partially virtual, the detrimental effects on our kids' education, social development, and mental health are significant. So I understand there are those with health conditions who are at greater risk from this novel coronavirus than most of us are. And I encourage you to work with families who have children with a documented issue that places them at greater risk and help them find a way to manage their child's education in a safe way. I also encourage you to work with any teachers who have a documented health concern that puts them at greater risk from COVID-19 to find a way for them to connect their classrooms and the students remotely. It makes more sense for these teachers to Zoom into the classroom than for the teachers to Zoom out to all households, many of which, like mine, don't have internet that's fast enough to handle this kind of speed, I guess. Maybe you could find a recent graduate with an education degree who's looking for experience, who could work hand in hand with an experienced teacher who's not able to come into school. The teachers could coordinate to plan classroom experiences. The experienced teacher could Zoom in for portions of the class time, and the new teacher could manage the classroom. So to conclude, I strongly support a return to the education of Randleman students with a schedule that's the same as the time before COVID. If this takes some creative problem solving, I trust we can accomplish that, but the main goal of our school district should be the education of our children. Thank you. I have some sources for some of the numbers.
Katie, if you don't mind, for those that don't know your background or your educational level, could you just identify,
By educational.
well, your
Sure,
expertise in knowing what you're talking about?
Okay, yeah, I'm faculty at Concordia University, Wisconsin. I teach in biochemistry and chemistry down there, so I have a PhD in biochemistry and pretty fair understanding of immunology and herd immunity and stuff like that. So,
Thank you.
And thank you for having moving day on August 20th.
sure, it had nothing to do with that decision, but I'm good.
Matt, I'll go ahead and let you.
I just wanna go on to his comment about the virtual, school. I'm gonna say, I had a good experience. Mrs. Glenboski for Hannah was a rock star. I think, sometimes the virtual learning might go down to teacher by teacher and how they handled it. That being said, I do feel the virtual learning only does go so far because my kids like that physical, they like hugging their teachers. Nothing, takes that place, that physical, even I'm sure the teachers agree that. They want their kids, So it's one thing virtual. I think that's the biggest deal, is that, the physicalness of it. But I'm gonna say, that being said, Hannah she was there, Miss Glenboski was a rock star, and if it had to be that way, let her, it was good. That's all I'm gonna say.
So we also invited the community that couldn't be present to share comments, so I'm gonna read these we have 4 different ones. The first one's from Mike and Sandy Jakes. We would like to comment on reopening the schools for our children. We feel it's necessary to reopen and let the kids back in to learn in person. Both of our children did not have equal experiences from spring. Our 4th graders teacher did awesome and really tried to make the best of the situation. My 9th grader, on the other hand, did horribly. We're not pleased with the education he received. It was watch video and answer this type learning. There are hardly even any in-person communications, whether through comments or instructional through Zoom video or Google Meets. Some of the teachers graded as if it were a normal school, taking points off late work when internet was an issue. We felt my son did not receive the education he expected. We hope you consider going back to school, back to in-school learning. It is imperative to our children's education and social emotional well-being to be there in person. They can wear masks, wash hands. This has been a practice in other countries with little issues. Thank you for your time. Jamie and Lena Vorpal wrote, while our district does have a wonderful virtual learning system in place and our teachers did a great job this past spring, we don't feel the students are gaining the full benefits they would from learning in person every day. Not only do they miss out on important instruction from the teacher, they also missing out on many positive gains from classroom interactions and discussions between other students and the teacher. We feel that there are many resources available for the students that choose not to attend in-person classes, and it would be better as a whole for the district to use those resources for the small amount of students that would need them. The district could have those students streamlined into the classroom while the other students are there in person. Plus, this could be an option for any students who would need to make changes during the school year. As a parent, we would like to see the students go back to school in person full-time this fall. Suzanne Martin. I'm alumni at Random Lake, as well as a parent of 2 students that previously graduated and the parent of a 3rd grader here in Random Lake. When I talk to my friends that live in other districts, I frequently find myself bragging about all our district has to offer. Staff here in Random have proven they are indeed the leaders in virtual learning. Our tiny community, accompanied by forward-thinking staff, took an impossible situation and flourished. We have the technology and the ability to be real game changers and set the gold standard for schools, not just in Wisconsin, but schools across the nation. As a district, we can reinforce that the safety of our students and staff is just as important as their well-rounded education. Our teachers took on the challenge and became leaders in this new virtual challenge overnight. The school shut down one day, and by the next, the nutrition team reformatted everything and have been feeding hundreds of students every week. We have already begun to show that we are capable of, as a district and as a community, and as we go forward, please keep the safety of our staff, our students, and their families in mind when making decisions about reopening for in-class instruction. How can we tell our children to work hard to become scientists, doctors, and science teachers, and then tell them when it matters most, we ignore the facts and data that says reopening is not safe and that we want to because it is comfortable. No one ever said doing what is right is easy. I do not say this lightly. I'm not speaking from an area of privilege. I'm a single parent with 2 jobs. I'm asking to push back the class instruction, not because it's easy or comfortable. I assure you it is not, but because the safety of the students and staff must be first and foremost above all else. And then our last one, and I apologize for my reading, I maybe should have read through these first, but I got these from Kim, so thank you, Kim, who's up there listening. Bobby Joe Plouffe. I know commercial cleaners, disinfectants are going to have to be used even more heavily this coming year. My main concern is that they be used correctly and not by students. For example, the disinfectant wipes often worn against children use. The surface needed to be wet for 3 to 5 minutes, not just a quick wipe. Washing with soap and water afterwards, using gloves and or not using on surface being eaten off of. We shouldn't be using anything that says to not be used around children or classified as pesticides. Air disinfectant sprays are awful for little lungs especially. My children are sensitive to residue being left behind, and if we amp that up, we are going to be dealing with overexposure to chemicals and worse later on. Hand washing should really be emphasized over hand sanitizer, as so many adults have dealt with chemical burns from overuse already in the past few months. Kids' skin will be even more sensitive. The younger grades combine supplies a lot of time. Is it possible to have them keep their own this year? What about Kleenex, etc.? Do we switch to the small personal packages so everyone isn't touching the box? I really like the idea of air purifying plants, as one teacher was looking for a classroom. What about air purifiers as well? Is this something we could possibly budget in once again, Travis? I look at that's my support you here. I, as I'm sure others would, be willing to donate in part to our classroom. Another suggestion would be to crack windows in the classroom and have them throughout the day. I really feel everyone needs to be temped on the way in, as there are parents who give the kids fever reducers before school to make it through the day. Are these same parents going to honestly tempt their kids and keep them home? I think a good majority of parents would prefer to send a few extra things along for school supplies this year and keep our kids in school safely as long as we can. Thank you for all you are doing. We appreciate it.
And that's all of those?
That's all of them. Yeah.
Okay. All right, then we will move up, okay?
I forgot to say one last thing. So my oldest son, who's now graduated, had some issues. I understand there's a lot of concerns and fear by people, of some people sending their kids back to school. But no, I mean, he graduated from EAchieve, which is a Waukesha school district. He chose that his senior year, he wanted to work full-time and needed 3 credits. So he literally got his degree. So there is options for those parents that aren't happy with the virtual from Random Lake and that don't want to send their kids back to school. Don't put that on our district. There's other districts that have those places or those systems in place. That's what they do. They're experts at it. And if you aren't comfortable, that's where you need to send your kid. Let our kids come back to school. I forgot to say that.
All right, thank you. All right, we will move on then to building reports. I'm still not sure how we're doing this.
We're going to see, we got Susan and Sandy right here, and I'm gonna start with, who's gonna be talking, Susan or Sandy, who's, can you turn this up a little bit, and we're going,
Okay, can you hear me?
I can hear you, can everybody hear? Yep. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so Sandy and I, we started really taking a look at doing our building reports together as a team, focusing on our 3 tenets: strong classroom, strong culture, strong community connections. So I'm going to start out first with strong classrooms. So we have building leadership teams that are at each of the levels, elementary, middle, and high school. And we have been working with our building leadership teams over these past couple of weeks, really focusing on what are our school goals going into this coming school year, as we're keeping up with our instructional practices, engaging student collaboration practices, and zeroing in on that so we can make the learning environment that much more impactful for students. So that's what we have been busy doing these last few weeks with our leadership teams. Sandy and I are going to tag team. We're going to kind of go back and forth. So I got the first bullet point. Now I'm turning it over to Sandy.
I just also wanted to clarify under strong classrooms that we understand as building leadership teams and as administrators of each of the buildings that this is going to look a little bit different in each one of the schools. So I would like to thank all of our building leadership team members and the time that they've put in over the course of the last month in helping us to set those goals and be as specific as we possibly can for each of the buildings and the developmentally appropriate, age and grade levels of each of the students involved. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to take strong culture. As I alluded to, we have been working on plans for reintroducing students to school. And one of the concerns that we have brought up is, our kids have been out of school, as some of the people have mentioned in the comments, since last March. And we understand that as much of a shock as it was to go instant virtual, we can't expect them to become instant brick and mortar again. So we are going to take the time in each of our schools to reinforce our RAMWay, our PBIS structures, and we have to reestablish the cultures in our building. We have great cultures. We had good, wonderful ideas as we kept going through virtual, but we know that we need to bridge that gap, not only academically, but emotionally and socially as well. So we are putting plans in place at all levels to reintroduce students to the school environment and to reestablish that culture that really brought us together and will continue to bring us together as a school district.
And leading off of that with the community connections, the parents and the teachers were surveyed. The leadership teams are using those results to really plan thoughtfully for the reopening, because we want to build back up and build upon that positive culture. We want to build upon our learning through the virtual framework this last quarter. As I heard some of the parents speak to, we want to get even better in using high leverage instructional practices to really be thoughtful with the instruction and to be thoughtful with our kid development age and what they need from each other in order to make school the best that it can be. So we're really trying to be thoughtful with that. And lastly, graduation, yay, we had our graduation, high school graduation, Saturday, July 18th, and everything I thought went very well. Myself with Nikki Anderson planned really hard to make sure that that was a memorable event, so that way Adam could walk in and facilitate the meeting, or the ceremony. And then thank you to, we had a couple of parents out there that helped too to make that ceremony even more impactful. Lena Vorpol, thank you, as well as the Booster Club. They donated water for each of our graduates and also had coolers there for our parents, so that way they could take a bottle of water. Really trying to be thoughtful of everyone's needs. And Mother Nature looked down upon us because we had a great breeze coming across the field, as well as cloud cover the sun. So I think all in all, fairly good conditions, and the rain held off until we were done and tore down. And
I think Christmas and the weather to be just perfect as well.
So kudos to everybody, but we really, I thought, had a great way to end that senior year.
And just to add, for Mr. Engelbrecht's going to come back, we know he's no longer a district employee, to come back and celebrate with that class. It was, with all things considered, it was a pretty cool day. So we're very, very happy with that. Okay, any questions?
All right, next we have board committee reports, committee of the whole, which were the parent and staff surveys and the reentry plan, which takes us into number 7, the presentation of those.
Perfect. So I'm going to start off with a couple things that we know we have a lot of people listening. We have our staff here. So before we get into the survey, I think it's clear it's something that we said publicly last month. We will say it again. We are planning for 5 days a week school, and truly, what we need to do is we're trying to put the choice in our parents' hands. So school will be 5 days a week if that's what you choose. School could be 5 days virtually if that's what you choose. And we're taking really what we got from our parent survey, what we got from our staff survey to do that. And as we go through this, we had a great response on our survey. 300 families responded, so very happy. We can see a pretty nice cross-section of all the different parents. Keep going. We asked them what did they think about virtual learning in Q4. Varied, as we heard today. We would say that we had a good cross-section that felt that it went better than expected or about what they expected. But we know that it wasn't smooth for everybody. Some students handled virtual learning a little bit differently. And we had some of our families that didn't have as good of experiences, and that's what we see there. As we go down to the next one, overall, how did virtual learning go for our children? We can see again over 50% said it went better or about what they expected, but we have in the 40% of our staff there, of our parents, that would like to see it going a little bit better. Go ahead. Some of the hardest challenges that we can see there, and I bet you every parent that's watching or is in here right now, getting my children to complete. I have a 5th grader at home and 2 educators that live with her, and we battle from time to time. The virtual made it difficult. The technology was a little bit of it, but really one of the big ones is the social interaction. Kids did not get to be with their peers, and we know how much learning that happens, that came across by a large segment of our population. Okay, we keep going. Overall, I felt my child was given much homework. You can see there. Overall, when we do something like this, anytime we can please the majority, we're happy. We always shoot for 100%. We never get 100%. We can see where we fall there. And then, here's just another satisfaction piece, how they're satisfied with it. It's very similar to the other ones. You can kind of keep going. here, how concerned, these are some of the telling ones that helped us inform our safety plan that we'll be talking about shortly is, when the school year begins, how concerned are you today with sending your children back to school? We can see that almost 47% are not, and another 28, so almost 75% of ours are a little concerned to not concerned. But in a district our size with 740 kids, we do have about 24% of our parents that are concerned, either very concerned or somewhat concerned. And what we've tried to do with this plan is address all of our families, that when we get the next survey that will be coming out in about a week and a half, 2 weeks, our parents can say 100% of them like the plan that we have. Did you have a question? Okay, sorry. Please stop me anytime board members are going through. Safety measures, here's some things that we see our parents would like us to do. I can tell you this helped inform our safety plan that you're going to hear about. Physical distancing, a big one was, lunch in the classrooms, small groups. There was a big, that said we didn't need any safety measures, but that would go against the health department, so we kind of want to stay with what they have to say, okay? And the ever wonderful question about face coverings or no face coverings. As you can see, it was pretty, our population would like face masks to be a parent choice. And you'll see, and I know this is probably a big question in a lot of minds out there. Currently our safety plan does not include a requirement for face coverings. It will be something that will be suggested. But I think there's, as we go through this, our safety plan is how it is today. We will look at it again next month, see what things change. We know this situation is ever evolving, but at this time there's no requirement for face coverings, just a recommendation, much like we have for the state of Wisconsin. And then this was the other piece. As we look at, we asked our families what kind of mode of education did they want, and we could see overwhelmingly 100% in school. We did have some families that wanted 100% virtual, that's 14%. So as a district, I can tell you, we need to, and I think we've done a good job of always trying to educate 100% of our kids. So it puts us in a situation when we have, over 70% want face-to-face, but there's still a percentage that want virtual. So how do we address that? And that's where we came up with a blended learning experience. So, is that the last one, Lee, or is there, I think that was the last question.
No.
What's the last one here? I forget. Oh, this had to do with homecoming and plays and some of the other pieces, large gatherings. So, and then we asked about Jumpstart, and you can see parents are all over the board. Some want summer school, some don't want summer school. I can tell you as a district, we keep trying to put offerings out there and letting our families decide and tell us what they want, what they don't want. We tried a June summer school. I can tell you that didn't go because parents told us they weren't interested. We did an outside face-to-face here the last couple weeks. We've had decent numbers, and now we're hearing our families maybe aren't all that interested in August summer school. So we just keep putting opportunities out there and let our parents tell us what they want and what they don't want. So Jumpstart right now, if you're listening and you're a parent that wants Jumpstart, register now, because right now the numbers are telling us that you guys don't want it. So those are some of the things that we'll continue to look at.
For the Jumpstart, does that compare to our normal?
All our numbers summer school are down drastically by over 50%, I would say.
But even these percentage, what percentage of our children normally do summer school?
Elementary, we have, Sandy, how many historically elementary students do summer school?
Over 70%.
We've really done some really, when we went to the adjusted schedule where we're done by May, our parents loved it and started doing summer school. This year we're not seeing those numbers, and it's rightfully so. I think we're all in different places with our comfort on this.
Yeah, that's what I would say.
I think it might change, after parents realize what you guys had in place, maybe it'll be like, okay, Jumpstart is, you know, my going into fifth and going in, Jumpstart might be a good idea to learn calls and changing classes and, you know.
And you heard us talk a little bit too about getting kids back to school. We gotta get them back to the school piece. They haven't, we're in the midst of the worst summer slide ever, you know? This is gonna be 6 months of no class. So Jumpstart is a way to kind of fight against that. And it's one of the reasons we're really fighting for the 5 days, for the families that want them, the 5 days of school. So, and, you know, the last one is bus. We are, the next survey, I can tell to the group, this was the first one to inform the first iteration of our safety plan. From here, we'll be asking our parents, are you ready to sign up for virtual? Are you ready to sign up for face-to-face? Are you gonna take the bus? Are you gonna drive? We need to know those things because then we can start talking about what social distancing looks like in our classrooms and those other things. So that's kind of an overview that really helped us get to our safety plan. I guess, you know, the next piece of this is getting to the safety plan. I can tell you just real quick, if you want the teacher survey, one of the things I'm really proud, our staff, with what we heard today, we had a lot of staff put a lot of hours in, and 97% attendance doesn't happen if our staff aren't working hard. So kudos does have to go out to them. They were put in a situation that had never happened, I mean, since 1917, the Spanish flu, and honestly, just a kudos to what they did. So if you get to the safety plan, I'm just gonna go over real quick some of the pieces that we're doing, and from there, I'm gonna ask the board members to kind of chime in on some other pieces, and then we can actually ask Susan and Sandy to chime in. I don't wanna go too in depth, but I wanna make sure some of the things that we're doing here, and in some of the things that we heard, a couple of things we're doing in the district. One of the pieces of point of pride are we will be temperature checking every student that comes in our door. We actually paid for the technology that they're using at Lambeau Field and other airports. That when our students come in, we have a surveillance monitor camera that will take the temperature of every student through the old commons. So we are directing students in a socially distant way. We're manipulating buses to drop off students one bus at a time so that we can make sure that every student that comes into our building will be under 100.3 degrees temperature. And if they do register hot, we have ways to mitigate that. We'll have an isolation room. We'll be retesting them 20 minutes later to make sure that it wasn't a hot day and they were running around outside. We're doing that. On top of that, we have bought, I call them the Ghostbuster backpacks for sanitizers. We've increased cleaning during the day for high-touch areas. We bought a face mask and shield for every staff member. We've increased air exchangers to make sure we're exchanging more air from the outside, and trying to do everything we can structurally to make sure our students can get here. We can talk a little bit about the classrooms, but I can tell you what the board heard today. We have an outstanding teacher-student ratio. We're at like about 15-1. So because of that, our class sizes are small enough to stay in the cohort. So, I mean, we have classes of 14. We have some of our big classes, we get nervous at classes of 21, 25, which other districts would love to keep their classes under 35. So our structure, the way our district is set, we can have smaller class sizes. We have big enough classrooms that we can stay within the CDC guidelines to keep students in their desks, social distancing, that they can be in a classroom, they can be far enough away from their friends, they can still talk to their friends and still get great instruction in the classroom. So, what I missed, that's kind of the overview. What board members, things that you stuck out from the safety plan that you heard before we came in here. Putting you on the spot. Sorry. Instead of talking.
I think the middle schoolers sitting, you know, I don't know how many feet apart you're gonna put them at the tables in the lunchroom is gonna be tough. I feel bad. I feel like they should be able to be near each other, you know, but I understand that in elementary, you're gonna put them in their classrooms to eat, and the high school as well, in their classrooms pretty
different areas. We're gonna use the cafeteria plus some other areas so they can kind of socially, wherever their classes are, they can mingle with their friends, but separating them as much as possible.
In these cohorts. right?
Yes, in kind of a cohort type model.
Should be pointed out, I think during the discussion we had earlier, that in elementary school, the proposal is to have barriers between each child, correct? That's good.
Well, I think we've already discussed the barriers are probably off so we're gonna use desks and we're gonna be socially distanced. So, I mean, we have there'll be very few, if any, barriers. I would say less than 10% of our population will have any barriers. And after today's discussion, we could say less than 2% and these would be like plastic barriers for like sneeze guards, things like that. Anything else, board members? Remember from the plan?
Well, you're releasing them at the back of the school at the end of the day to get on the buses at the back, which
That's-
is a really huge change, which will be outstanding for a lot of parents that pick up their kids at the front.
One of my favorites, this is an offshoot of having our own buses, so we can do what we want to with the buses. We've known after school, this has been kind of a melee of everybody going out. We can regulate how students come in. Students will be coming in one bus at a time. Everybody will be funneling socially distanced through the old commons. But when we dismiss at the end of the day, we have and you can see up there at 3 o'clock, the walkers go home. At 3:05, we'll let the high school drivers go home. And then what we're doing is parents can pick up students in the front of the bus, in the front of the school. Bus students will be dismissed by bus in the back of the school, and will be picked up in the back by the kind of where the cafeteria is, and will be transported out that way. So we're dividing kids as they're leaving to make sure that I think this is safer, and honestly, this is something that we'll probably do going forward because it now allows us to. I mean, students may be getting home 5 minutes later, 10 minutes later off the bus, but they're doing it in a safe way, and. We've already done some test trials. We can turn around back there. It takes a little longer, but you know what? This is another way that we can kind of do the safety things as much as possible.
We've been touching on putting those buses back there for years and finding a way to do it, so it's time to get it there.
It's a positive, right?
Yes.
I like that music and gym and band are still in the student schedules.
Yep.
So making special arrangements to make sure that can still happen is important.
And I mean, we know music when you're talking loud, there can be more mist in the air. We're using our larger rooms to be able to still have those classes.
Any other board members, questions or comments? All right, I'll take one from you.
So I heard that busing, I'm way on the outside of the district. What does that look like? Because I'm sure a lot of parents want to know, right? We're talking social distancing. I heard 24 kids per bus. What does that look like for parents?
Well, one of the things that we need to do is our parents need to know what our safety plan is. So after this meeting, one of the things you'll see is there'll be some video instruction. One is going to be sharing the survey and showing how the results from our parents help inform our safety plan. The next one will be a video reproduction of the safety plan, kind of explaining what we did here. After those come out, then we're going to ask parents, we're going to survey them and say, okay, are you sending your child to school or would you prefer to have it virtually? Our next question is, if you are qualifying for buses, are you going to send them on the bus or are you not? Once we know those numbers, we have some ways that we may look at a double route in the morning. Again, it's reduced the cost because we own the buses. We have the flexibility to do that, and if we need to do that, we may have to play with the bell schedule a little bit, but we're willing to do that once we know how many students we have to transport. So 24 is a good rough number for a bus. That's about 1 a seat. We can put families together. So those are some of the things that we need to hear from our parents on what they need. But I would say right now, if they want busing and they need busing, they will get busing. We just have to be flexible with that.
Perfect, thank you.
Another thing we talked about is that we're concerned about our teachers and what's gonna be asked of them because we're gonna have in classroom and virtual as well. And so you talked about how you're addressing that with the teachers.
Yeah, and that came up a couple times, thank you. You know, one of the pieces that we need to do, I think there's this adage that our teachers are gonna have to teach in person and then also teach a group of students virtually. And with our experience around technology, there's ways that it's called flipping a classroom. And our staff actually since the first week of July have been getting professional development virtually on how to do this. What are the skills that you're going to see my lessons that come out here after this for our parents. They're going to look very similar to what a direct instruction may look in a flipped classroom piece. Our staff are starting to learn this, so what we're trying to do technically is we're used to teachers standing in front of school and giving their knowledge, and then we send kids off at home to do the homework. We're flipping it. We're actually going to virtually present the direct instruction through our Schoology or Seesaw learning management systems. And then if parents choose to keep their students at home, their child at home has just got the same instruction you would at school. They will help them with the homework. If our students come to school, we will help them and do those things to help them with their homework here. So that's how we do the same thing. Truly, this is a research-based practice around instruction. And because our staff, I say we're second to none, we can do this, we need to learn. But I can tell you right now, 2/3 of our staff are doing this voluntarily to learn how to do this, so we're set for September 1. When a lot of districts are wondering what they're going to do, we're already prepping to get to that. So couldn't be more proud of our group, of our staff. We have a great team that are putting this class together, and you know, there's a lot of changing pieces to this, but I can tell you, there's a lot of people working pretty darn hard to do everything we can for our kids. Anything else with the safety plan? Sandy or Susan, did I miss anything? Did we miss anything? Marty's good.
I like the fact that the mask thing is optional.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
The what's optional?
The masks are optional.
And I would like to say, and I want to put this publicly right now, masks are optional, and that's, you know, we got it from the survey. One of the things we'll have to remember that I'm worried about is we know this virus doesn't impact kids, but it does impact adults. And one of my biggest things is when we ask our staff, when we ask our students to wear face coverings, we have to know that our ability to be a 5-day-a-week school depends on how many adults we have in here. And if we get too many infections, if we get too many staff quarantined, that can impact our ability to do 5 days. So, you know, we know how polarizing and political face masks are. I don't care what your allegiance, what you think. As long as we stay healthy, we can do this. If we don't stay healthy, those will be some of the things that may have us to change those. But under current states, we're happy to make it a family choice. So, and that's what we're hoping to do is, hopefully you see across this entire plan, it's about giving the parents the power and the choice to choose what's best for their family, and we as a district are trying to give them everything possible.
I think one thing we should probably explain a little bit, the cohort thing was asked in the other room, and to explain once people start seeing it referred to in here, at an elementary level, they're going to move around as a group. So they stay together as to not mingle as much, and I think that will help a lot, alleviate a lot of the mixing and things like that too. So as much as possible, if we stay as a group, you know, you're not exposed to as many. I like that concept.
And in committee, we had a lot of discussion. It seems like a lot of rules. It's a lot of adult practices that we're doing. We're hoping that the kids don't feel like they're in a boot camp, you know? So this sounds very regimented, very military-esque, but it's hopefully changing adult behaviors to put students at less risk, but having them have the pleasure of being in school 5 days a week. So that's our hope.
Anyone
Keep
else?
looking at me.
Okay.
Awesome. Hey, and I will be presenting any changes this next month again.
This
will
is
be-
just gonna be a living.
This is a living fluid
what-
document, yes, yes. And as we have surveys out, we'll be reviewing new surveys and doing all that in the ordinary.
But the board is committed to 5 days a week in person, so,
Okay, great.
so that's where we're at. And, in following the guidelines that we have to go by so that we can do that. We came to a consensus that we would agree to follow those guidelines that we need to follow so that we can be open. So, even though some of us have some, but we're gonna do it.
Darn you. Yes.
That reservation was real out there. I mean, I'm already seeing my kid with a common cold alienated.
Well, that's
Well,
you get that at the gas station.
Right.
Well, I'm sure all the parents will work together with everybody.
So
Because-
that's where we're at. So nothing more on that, we will move on to, renewal of existing line of credit. This is something that we do every year.
Yep, we do it every year. We didn't, I don't think we needed to use it, this last year, but, it's always nice to have, so,
Just in case.
just in case. And there may be a need for it this next year with all the admin expenses that we have.
Okay, is there a motion to approve, Commerce State Bank for our temporary borrowing for the line of credit? Rainey, is there a second? Brian, any questions or discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We also have to designate our official depository. We do this every year as well. Is there a motion to approve Collins State Bank of Random Lake and Commerce State Bank, as our institutions? Jennifer, is there a second? Brian, any questions or discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Academic standards for 2020, 2021.
20s. Sandy, is there anything that you want to say about the standards at all?
Sure, there's only one change, well, first off, this is required every year. The only change from last year is that the state of Wisconsin has released what they refer to as Wisconsin Model Academic Standards for Social Studies in their updated version. And those are the standards that our vertical PLC teams have been using to plan our social studies power standards over the past school year. That's really the only one that's changed. And the next one that's up for review is English Language Arts, because the state reviews every 5 years.
Okay. Any questions?
I do. I'm just wondering, how much freedom do we have in this? Because I see 3 Wisconsin standards, and then I see next generation science standard. So does our school, we get to identify what our standards are, or is this something that Wisconsin gives like a minimum standard, and where do we find that requirement?
Sandy, did you hear that question?
Yes, I did. The state has adopted the standards that you see in front of you, so that's why our school district is using those standards. The standardized tests are called standardized tests because they are also based on standards, and it is those standards, those standard documents that you see in front of you, that the questions that are on our standardized tests, that's where they get the question, that's where they develop the questions. So for us to be able to, perform on standardized tests, we should be working from the same standards as the tests come from. But what we have is local control, because Wisconsin is very proud of their local control aspect in schools, is if you were to open up every one of those documents, you are going to see way too many standards to be covered with any degree of efficiency. So what we have been doing over the past couple of years in our professional learning communities, in teams that are K-12 represented, is we have been putting standards together and coordinating standards into what we're calling power standards. And it is our opinion based on the totality of each one of those documents, that the power standards that we have identified are best represented by what is needed first and foremost by students to be adequate, exceptional learners, and also by examining what standards are hit more frequently on the standardized tests. So we have some leeway as far as what we hit and how we hit it and what we hit harder, but those documents that you see in front of you are from the state. They are designated by the state as the Wisconsin standards, even though one of them is the next generation science standards. The state is currently working on the Wisconsin version of that. So we do have local control over which ones we emphasize, but it is to our advantage to adopt the standards that our state does and the documents that our tests are developed from.
And one of the things I'm most proud of the last 3.5 years, one, and I forget who said that, I think it was Marzano said that if you were to hit every standard, we'd actually have to have school through age 22. Because there's more in here than we can ever teach. So what we've done over the last few years is we've identified these power standards, and we've identified, if we look at mathematics, what are the 10 most important things in first grade, what are the 10 most important things in second grade, third grade, and we've created a scope and sequence across the district that actually has probably some of the best complementary assessments, instruction, that are based off of these standards, but off of what our students need. And, this last year, we won't get this year, but our last report card was the first time all 3 schools and the district were, exceeds expectations. I couldn't even remember that, exceeds expectations. And it's because of the work of our staff around these standards and really identifying what are those ones that our kids need to leave each grade with. So that's been a lot of professional development around those standards and what are the important ones for our district.
We talked when everything started with COVID, and we were wondering how is this going to impact education, and we see more use of technology and maybe how teachers are teaching. Is this an area that could potentially be impacted? Will we reevaluate those standards and say, okay, maybe these aren't as important to emphasize?
So the research will say when you have laser focus on the 10 most powerful standards a student needs to get through third grade English language arts, that you'll actually accelerate learning to a 1.2 grade level in a year. So the old way used to be, here are all the standards for math and or language arts in third grade. It's this much, and teachers used to pick and choose what they want. Now we're saying, no, here are the things that are most important, and in third grade we all agree on it. It's called Guaranteed Bilingual Curriculum, and the research behind it is, in a time where we just left, where students may have laid back because of our work here, students will accelerate their learning over a traditional school that just lets staff choose whatever standards they want. We are actually being descriptive on what our most powerful ones are. We're letting our teachers be the ones that decide it, but using assessment data both formative and
Evidence-based.
What's that?
It's evidence-based, what
Yes.
they're deciding.
Yeah, exactly. They're looking at what our test scores say and say, oh, our students are struggling here, so let's put a little bit more here.
And then the leadership team, not just the curriculum, that they agree as a team with those 10.
Yeah, we spend time collaborating at the grade level and then at the district level. So it's horizontal agreement and then vertical compliance, and that's where our scope and sequence is coming from. So.
I have just a question that is more to be informative, because I know a lot of people are concerned, given the nature of education, and particularly with social studies. What I understood Susan to be saying was that we teach the main points that are tested for the state mandates. These are the key PowerPoints we want to be teaching our kids, because this is what they'll test at. My question is, do we have any control over, in particular with social studies, what they're learning? And I guess I'm getting to the idea of, it seems in this current environment, people are wanting to change facts of history and how they're perceived, and do we have any control over that? Or are we just gonna teach whatever the state is mandating, because that's what that's what they're looking for now? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Is that what I'm trying to get to?
And
Do you have any control on that?
my first answer to that would be, if you looked at a social studies standard, the standard would be less about understanding this piece, than it's more about thinking like a historian, like how does multiple factors lead to these events in time? So it's more about analyzing and synthesizing. And Sandy, I know you know the standards better than I did, so if I just messed it up, feel free, or even Susan. But it's less about when was the War of 1812, and more about how did the events that led up to this cause this. So our students are leaving thinking more like a historian and less about remembering dates and times and pieces like that. Any additions that you want to add, Sandy or Susan?
No, that's absolutely perfect. It's more about becoming, questioning, for example, if you take kindergarten level questioning, they don't understand a statement versus a question. So we have to start off with, what is a question? And then eventually we have to develop questioning, and I'm just following questioning through the social studies standards because they embed the skills in there. Eventually you have to have the difference between an open-ended and a closed-ended question. And then you have to have evidence to support your rationale behind why you've taken the answer that you have to the question. And then you have to start looking at, is that a primary source? Is that a secondary source? And it's doing the background work to not only create questions, but answer questions and find your sources for backing up your answer to the question. So it's not, the facts of the War of 1812, like Mike said. It's more thinking through that process, and I just use the line of questioning as one of the skills that goes through. Keep in mind that social studies in general is also economics and history and geography and all of those different aspects put in there. So we're looking at it through the lens of, for example, how do we develop questioning in each of those different sub areas rather than memorizing things that could get you well paid on Jeopardy.
So it's about being critical thinkers.
More analytical than it is factual based.
Yeah. Now, of course, different events are covered in all those other pieces.
Right.
And we use historical events to be critical thinkers. I think we have some social studies teachers that do some really nice things with that. And if you ever wanted to find out exactly what those things are teaching, you can always talk to one of our social studies teachers.
Thank you for the clarification. I think you know where I was going with my concern. I hope you know where I was going.
Yep.
Okay, next we have acceptance of staff resignation. Is there a motion to approve with thanks for her year of service, Morgan
Nobly, yep.
as the assistant occupational therapist resignation? Jennifer, is there a second? Reading, any questions or discussion?
And Morgan actually never worked for our district. We have an agreement with Cedar Grove and with Hoosburg that we share. Occupational therapists is a really great way, and they needed an extra person for one day, and Morgan was a great fill, and she got a full-time job. So we're happy when we can find these 20% jobs, work together, just how you partner with other districts to get good people. We congratulate her on a full-time gig, and we'll be looking for somebody that's looking for a 20% occupational therapist job. If anybody's interested, please reach out.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We have a contract for CISA 7 for the 2020-2021 school year. The contract total is $25,043.10. Is there a motion to approve?
Just a question, how does this compare to last year? Is this right on?
Exactly the same. If they went up a small percentage, but it's the same services that we've had for the last few years.
Jennifer, is there a second?
closest school district was Kiel or New Holstein, one of those in that area that went to it. It was good information. They picked their, like, their representatives, their elected officials, and then they have, they talked about substitute teacher options too, and how they're like training people with bachelor's degrees and even associate degrees to get like an accelerated substitute teacher option, training. So I thought that was kind of cool. I didn't realize all of the, like the 38 districts that they support.
So if you're new to CISAs, what the state of Wisconsin did many years ago is they took the entire state and broke it up into 13, I think, branches. We're part of 12. Thank you. We're part of CISA 7, along with 37 other districts, and it's a way of disseminating information from the state. So these are kind of our individuals that work at the CISA. They have contact with DPI. DPI tells them, and then they're in charge of training us. So as a smaller district, they are fantastic for collaborating. They've helped us with hiring retirees. They're just they're kind of that crack, they're the mortar between the brick that helps us do those things that we can't do because we're not big enough. They offer different therapists at times. I think our what is it, not speech, but our speech pathologist, or audiologist, thank you, yep. Visually impaired.
Visually impaired, mobility.
Somebody that we probably would need like one day a month or, a few hours a month, we can share that service with them. So, and we've been pretty fortunate to keep that cost about the same.
As far as specialized training, each CISA kind of specializes in something.
Yep. The CISA is doing a lot around virtual. They help bring all the superintendents together for a PAC meeting. They do an assessment coordinator meeting. They do a lot of those regional trainings. So it's a little bit of everything. They try to do whatever they can to be relevant. We could very easily say we don't want the contract, so we are their customers. But I would say that they've been very, when we ask for something, they've been pretty accommodating.
Is there a motion to approve?
So we'll
Brian and Chuck, any further questions or discussion? Actually, we already had that on there, didn't we? Kim's over there screaming. I can hear it. Scratch that last one, whatever motion we had, whoever did it, the first one, that, we're already there. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right. We need to establish the times for the annual meeting and budget hearing. Generally we have the budget hearing at 6:15, and the meeting starts at 6:30 then. And it's scheduled for October 19th, 2020. Is there a motion to approve? Jennifer? Brian? Any questions or discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And informational.
I know it's been a late, so I'll go through these pretty quick. Strong culture. I know Sandy and Susan talked about this earlier. When we come back, our focus, our goal for next year is going to be really building culture with our staff, with our students. I like to say, you know what, for the first time in about 100 years, our kids found out we can take school away from them. We didn't want to, but we did. So maybe they find out they want to be here. Let's use this as a little bit of motivator to say, we're here together. Teachers, we want the kids. Students, we want the teachers. We find a little bit more of absence makes the heart grow fonder. So we're going to use that to bring everybody back in fall. So I'm looking forward to some of those pieces. The next one, I just wanted to, with all the things going on, if there wasn't enough with COVID, there's been so much national turmoil around racism and culture and all those other pieces. And I just wanted to make a statement here about how, as a district, this board has policies against discriminations. We have official ways to make a complaint for it. And I just want to thank you because the statement is we don't only denounce racism, we actively fight against it. One of the reasons we're having strong culture as one of our goals is to talk about these topics, and if anyone ever feels like they have been, marginalized, we have ways for them to come and speak to administration, individuals they can speak to. So just so you know, in all this time, I think we do a fantastic job of trying to make sure that everyone feels like this is a place where they can learn in a safe way. And from that, unfortunately, the Randleman Foundation golf outing is canceled. Save your date, it is the third Monday in July, so next year we'll be doing it. Jumpstart is up here because right now it's at a place that we're not sure we're going to have it. Hopefully some of our parents heard all the things that we're doing, trying to get students back in the building, and will sign up, but in the next week or so, if we don't have more participants, we will be looking at canceling that and just putting all our focus into September 1. And lastly, we have a legislative update today, and I think one of the big things that came out of there is budget-wise. I said to the board back when our state incomes were really getting impacted, I was afraid that there would be a budget correction. Right now, it seems like budget corrections aren't on anybody's appetite, but they're saying be prepared because the 21, 22, 23 biennium budget will be impacted. So some of the tough decisions we made for next year will help us as we get into the next biennium. So I think we're as future ready as possible, and we'll just keep going 1 month at a time. See what the 2020 pulls at us next, because heck, we just don't know. Yeah.
All right, is there a motion to adjourn? Jennifer, is there a second?
I'll second.
Any questions on adjourning? All right, all those in favor, please say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, everybody online, too.
Next time you might want to have your name